She is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
She walked in there, Rachel. She had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. He said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak off.
Diddy broke down in court, right there in front of the jury, the cameras, and Cassie Ventura, the woman who just dismantled his entire legacy. She walked in pregnant, fearless, and ready to expose it all. And what she revealed, it shook the courtroom to its core. From disturbing private encounters to emotional manipulation, from surveillance to raw physical control, this wasn't just a testimony. This was an execution. His lawyers scrambled. His team panicked. But nothing could stop what Cassie was about to unleash.
The government calls Cassie Ventura. How old are you?
38.
What is your work?
Musician and entertainer.
How long were you with Sean?
10 years.
Did you get in arguments?
Yes, it would result in dragging.
What else did he do?
Me in the head if I was down.
How frequently was he?
Too frequently. I would get black eyes and
Let me show you a video. Where is this?
The Intercontinental in Los Angeles. It was after a freak-off.
What does that entail?
The hiring of an setting it up.
How did you feel when he?
She walked in like she owned the moment. Pregnant, calm, unshaken. Dressed in a brown, form-fitting dress, Cassie Ventura stepped into that courtroom without flinching. No eye contact with Diddy. No hesitation. Just years of silence, finally about to explode. Reporters said you could feel the energy shift. That room, packed with lawyers, press, and federal agents, suddenly got quiet. Everyone knew this wasn't just testimony. This was about to be war. Diddy sat across from her, stone-faced. But witnesses say the mask started to crack the moment she took the stand. The mogul, once in total control, was already fidgeting, pulling at his cuffs, shifting in his chair, scribbling notes like he was drowning. And Cassie hadn't even started speaking yet. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She spoke slowly, clearly, and it hit harder than any outburst ever could. Because behind that calm tone was something even more dangerous, truth. But once she opened her mouth, the courtroom would never be the same.
First asked for it.
Confused, nervous. I wanted to make him happy.
Did you agree to one when he first proposed it?
Yes. Then there were more. It wasn't something I wanted to do, at least not that frequently. I didn't know what no could turn into.
What do you mean?
Making him angry.
What were you afraid would happen if you said no?
That he had materials.
What did you give the government?
Laptops.
I've handed up GXB. Do you recognize it?
Yes, I've reviewed this drive. It has communication and documents pertaining to Mr. Combs.
Did you review photos on it?
Yes.
What's this photo?
Me in 2004 with Carrie Morgan.
When did you sign with Bad Boy Records?
2006. It was a 10-album deal.
Did you release any after late 2006?
No.
Cassie didn't hold back. She began laying out a story that was darker, deeper, and far more twisted than anyone expected. She described a world hidden behind Diddy's billion-dollar smile. A world of psychological pressure, emotional control, and deeply disturbing private encounters, all allegedly orchestrated by the man once seen as untouchable in hip-hop. She told the jury that just a year into their relationship, Diddy introduced her to what he called special arrangements. Encounters where she wasn't just a partner, she was expected to perform. Sometimes with strangers, sometimes under instruction, and always under his watchful eye. She was barely 22. She said she didn't know any better, that she wanted to please him, that she thought this was part of being with a powerful man in the industry. At one point, when the prosecution asked if there was ever a time she looked forward to those experiences, she choked up. I did, she admitted, but only because it meant I'd get to spend time alone with him. And I really did love him. It wasn't a romantic confession. It was a glimpse into how manipulation works, how someone can be convinced that pain is proof of love. She said these encounters weren't rare. They became a routine, sometimes organized, sometimes spontaneous, but always under Diddy's direction. And the courtroom sat frozen, barely breathing, as she calmly detailed it all. But emotional control was just the beginning, because what she revealed next took everything to a whole new level.
Who's in this photo?
Kim Porter. She was Sean's ex from before me and the mother of his children.
Where did you celebrate your birthday in this photo?
In Las Vegas. Carrie Morgan was there too. We're out on his patio on my 21st birthday. VMAs.
What happened then?
Sean kissed me in the bathroom. I ran back to my hotel. I told Carrie.
When you got back to New York,
I'd visit him at the Trump Hotel in Columbus Circle. His apartment was being renovated.
what were you doing with your music career?
Trying to come up with a concept. Sean called all of the shots.
What is the age difference between you and Sean?
17 years.
How did you feel when Sean invited you to host?
For years, Diddy built a legacy most artists only dream of. He launched Bad Boy Records, turned unknown names into global icons, and expanded his brand into fashion, alcohol, and media. On paper, he was more than a mogul, he was a king. The blueprint for how to win in hip-hop, business, and culture. But Cassie's testimony began tearing that entire image to pieces. She described a reality that didn't match the magazine covers or red carpet smiles. While the world praised his every move, she says she lived in constant fear, micromanaged, surveilled, and emotionally trapped. According to her, Diddy wasn't just controlling in public. Behind closed doors, she claimed he dictated how she dressed, who she talked to, and even what she was allowed to feel. Then came the surveillance. Cassie told the court he allegedly had software installed on her phone to track her every move, that he would call within minutes of her arriving anywhere, already knowing exactly where she was. Friends stopped calling. Collaborators disappeared. Eventually, she said, there was no one left in her corner but him. The courtroom was dead silent. Reporters described the vibe as surreal, like watching a skyscraper collapse in slow motion. Because this wasn't just about one relationship. It was about power, about the kind of control that hides behind success, fame, and wealth. And the jury? They weren't looking at a hip-hop legend anymore. They were looking at a man whose empire was built on silence, and Cassie had just broken it. But she wasn't done. Not even close. Because what she showed the court next, no one saw coming.
Hotels.
Nervous, excited, like we were going to talk about music. He introduced me to... I didn't understand it.
Did you visit Sean in Miami?
Yes, I went with Carrie Morgan in Dallas, Austin.
What did you and Sean do together?
He gave me Blue Dolphin on a boat.
Had you once before taken unintentionally?
Yes,
How did you take it unintentionally?
it was in Gatorade.
When you took it intentionally with Sean, how did it feel?
Like rolling.
At the time, what did you think?
That we were spending a lot of time together. I thought we were monogamous.
Was it made public?
No, I was his artist. Also, his family, his children.
Who was linked to him publicly?
Kim Porter.
How did Sean treat you at this time?
We had fun.
What was his lifestyle like?
He had all these assistants. He could get things done. He traveled quite a bit.
What's this photo?
Sean and I at a strip club in New York, like 2007 or 2008. Halloween,
How did Sean's moods vary?
day to day.
Cassie didn't just speak. She came prepared. As the courtroom leaned in, her lawyer handed her a phone. And then, boom, the screens lit up. Photos, emails, texts, all of it. Real, raw, undeniable. The jury saw pictures Cassie said she took herself. Bruises on her arms, a busted lip, red marks on her neck. Not professional photos. These were grainy, shaky mirror selfies taken in a hotel bathroom. And that made them hit even harder. She told the court she'd taken them as proof, because deep down, she knew, one day, she might need evidence that couldn't be spawned or silenced. Then came the emails. Messages where Diddy allegedly apologized after violent outbursts. Others where he promised to make things right. One email even offered her anything she wanted, a car, an apartment, whatever you need, he wrote, just as long as she kept quiet. And the courtroom? You could hear people breathing. Jurors froze. Reporters stopped typing. Because this wasn't speculation anymore. These were digital fingerprints. And they clashed hard with the polished story Diddy had always told the public. His attorneys jumped to object. They argued the photos weren't verified, that the emails were too old, that this wasn't part of the official timeline. But the judge wasn't buying it. Objection overruled. Every single one. And just like that, the receipts were officially part of the case. But even after all that, the most shocking part was still coming. Because Cassie wasn't the only one who saw what really happened behind closed doors.
When it swung, could you describe it?
Anger, zoning out.
How did it impact you?
Greatly. The next thing I knew, I was getting hit in the face. There was also psychological. He'd tell me to watch my mouth, change my face.
How would he keep tabs on you?
We didn't live far apart. He'd send security to come find me, or a trusted assistant.
Like who?
David James, Christina Coram.
Was your relationship exclusive?
No.
Did you see other men?
Yes.
Did Sean see other women?
Yes. He said, "I am Puff Daddy." I was insanely jealous.
Did you move to LA with him?
Yes, he wanted to be close to his kids who were there.
Where did you live in LA?
875 Comstock Avenue.
How tall was the building?
No more than 17 floors.
Where did Sean live?
200 South Mapleton. Sean would use a golf cart to get back and forth.
Who paid your rent in LA?
Sean, except when I had the house in Studio City.
Why'd you pay then?
I could afford it then, and I wanted to have some control. It was accepted.
By whom?
Sean.
Just when it felt like the courtroom had seen it all, Cassie dropped the next bomb. She revealed that she hadn't been the only one to witness Diddy's behavior behind the scenes. She had saved messages, texts from celebrities, people in Diddy's inner circle, fellow artists, collaborators, longtime friends. And these weren't vague sympathy notes. They were direct, they were real, and they changed everything. One message came from a major rapper after a Grammy after party. "You okay? What I saw tonight wasn't right. If you need to crash at my place, you can." Another came from a female pop star. "I've known him 15 years. I've never seen him act like that before. That's not normal." But the most damning? A veteran producer who had worked with Diddy for decades. His message was short and chilling. "I can't be around this anymore. I told him to get help. Call me when you're safe." As those texts appeared on the courtroom screens, the energy shifted again. One juror covered her mouth in shock. Another turned away, visibly shaken. Diddy's lawyers exploded with objections. They called the messages hearsay, claimed they were irrelevant, demanded a private sidebar with the judge. But the judge reviewed everything and dropped the hammer. Every objection? Denied. The texts were officially in. And suddenly, this wasn't just Cassie's word against Diddy. It was proof that others knew, that some had even tried to help her. And that made the silence surrounding Diddy all these years look a lot more deliberate. And that's when it happened. The moment no one could believe. Because Diddy, the man who built an empire on staying cool under pressure, snapped.
How many songs did you write while with Sean?
Hundreds. Most were never released. Some got leaked on the internet, some on mixtapes.
How many albums on your deal were not released?
9.
Did you get paid for them?
No. The freak-offs became a job. There was no time to do anything else but do them, then try to recover.
How much time in your week would freak-offs take?
The longest was 4 days, significant periods of time.
At this moment, there was a break. Then they continued.
Who was your manager at Bad Boy Records?
James Cruz.
What did he tell you?
That he was managing me with one hand tied behind his back. He had to check everything with Sean.
How did you make money if your records weren't being released?
I did hosting parties. When
He tried to hold it together, but the mask finally slipped. As Cassie kept speaking, witnesses say Diddy began unraveling. Slowly at first, fidgeting, shifting in his seat, pulling at his tie, scribbling notes like a man in panic mode. His lawyers leaned in, whispering to him, trying to keep him steady. But the more she said, the worse it got. Then came the audio. Cassie's legal team played a recording, Diddy's own voice, allegedly making threats. The courtroom fell silent, and that's when Diddy stood up, pointed at her, and shouted, "You know that's not how it happened." Gasps. Movement. Security stepped forward. His lawyers grabbed his arm and forced him back down into his seat. It wasn't just a meltdown, it was a full public breakdown. The courtroom was stunned. Even the judge looked rattled. She slammed her gavel and called for a recess on the spot. Reporters in the gallery said they'd never seen anything like it. This wasn't the smooth, composed businessman the world had known. This was a man losing control, not just of his emotions, but of the story he'd spent decades controlling. And the worst part? The jury saw everything. They watched him react, watched him shake his head, watched his lawyers pass him frantic notes that said things like "stay calm" in bold, underlined letters. But it didn't help. By the time court resumed, his energy was gone. The mogul who once strutted into the room like a king was now slouched in his chair, eyes low, hands clenched. And Cassie? Still calm, still steady, still telling her story. And just when everyone thought the storm had passed, she dropped one last bomb that could end everything.
Sean approved them.
What comments did Sean make about your physical appearance?
That I looked too Mexican with my hair like that.
How did he like your nails?
White, French tipped.
Hair?
It varied. I shaved my head in 2009.
Your body?
He told me to work out, prepare for the freak-offs.
How did you feel about his comments?
It varied.
What else did Sean pay for?
Cars.
Did he give you cash?
Yes, but he would take things away depending on how he felt.
What else would he take away?
My self-confidence.
Who would take things away?
Staff. I assume staff.
At this point, There was an objection by the defense. Then the judge said to disregard the last answer.
Who took your laptop and phone?
Security.
How long would they be gone for?
However long I was being punished for.
How often were you in contact with Sean's staff?
Daily.
Who are in these photos?
Christina Coram and Ms. Fletcher.
What did you call Ms. Coram?
KK.
And who's this?
D-Rock. He was Sean's security.
How frequently were you in Sean's residences?
All the time.
Did they all have safes?
Yes.
What did you observe in them?
Cash, jewelry, cameras, and videotapes. In New York, LA, Miami, and Alpine, New Jersey.
Do you recall an incident between Sean and Suge Knight?
Yes. We were having a freak-off in LA. D-Rock came in and said Suge was down at a diner. Sean drove over there.
What was your reaction?
I cried, said don't do something stupid.
Were you ever handed a gun?
Yes. We were going to a club in downtown LA. We'd taken.
You'd think after the photos, the emails, the texts, and the audio, there'd be nothing left to reveal. But Cassie wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone again and handed it to her attorney. On the screen, messages from Diddy himself. One read, "I'm sorry about last night. You know how I get when I drink. It won't happen again." Another, "Whatever you need to make this right, a car, an apartment, whatever. Just don't go public." And then came the one that froze the entire courtroom. "My lawyer can draft the paperwork tomorrow, $2 million. Clean break. You don't talk about anything from the past 5 years." The words hit like a sledgehammer. This wasn't just damage control, it sounded like hush money. And it came straight from Diddy's own account. But Cassie had saved more than just her conversations with him. She revealed she'd been quietly collecting receipts for years. Emails, texts, screenshots, even voicemails. All backed up. All stored in places no one could reach or delete. Then, without warning, she named names. Big names. Famous names. People from Diddy's own circle, artists, producers, longtime friends, who had allegedly seen his behavior firsthand and texted her about it. The courtroom exploded. Diddy's face reportedly turned pale. His lawyers jumped to their feet again, yelling objections, trying anything to stop those names from being read out loud. But the judge had already reviewed the messages. Every objection, overruled. The texts were cleared. The celebrities were named. And the jury saw it all. By this point, Diddy's once-packed support bench was nearly empty. The entourage that walked in with him that morning quietly disappeared. One by one, they slipped out of the courtroom, no eye contact, no words. And there he was, just Diddy, alone, slouched at the defense table, watching everything crash down. The empire he built was still standing outside, but inside that courtroom, it had already fallen.
In mushrooms, I was high. I was told to put the gun in my bag. I was freaking out.
Who was present?
A driver, security, and Sean. Another time I saw them get dressed and grab guns and leave in an SUV.
How long were they gone?
30 or 40 minutes.
Let me switch topics. How soon into the relationship did Sean mention to you?
First 6 months or a year.
How old were you?
22.
Why did you agree to try a freak-off?
Good question. I wanted to make him happy.
Where was the first freak-off?
One of his homes in Los Angeles.
Who is this?
The first escort.
Do you know his name?
No.
I'll call him the first escort. Were you aware he was paid?
Yes. To dance and to have intercourse with me.
What drugs did you take?
Ecstasy and alcohol before things started.
Did you disguise your appearance?
Sean said we would disguise ourselves. I wore a masquerade mask.
What was a session in a freak-off?
Until the escort finished.
How many sessions with the first escort?
At least 2.
How did you feel?
I was high, so I didn't feel much. Dirty and confusion.
Cassie didn't just tell her story, she rewrote the entire narrative. For years, Diddy was untouchable, the mogul, the mastermind, the man who built an empire on charm, money, and silence. But in that courtroom, with her voice steady and her evidence undeniable, Cassie flipped everything. What the world once saw as confidence now looked like control. What was praised as ambition now felt like manipulation. And the brand Diddy spent decades polishing, cracked in real time, right in front of everyone. This wasn't a tabloid scandal. This was a reckoning. She exposed more than a relationship, she exposed a system. One where power protects power. One where silence is rewarded, and speaking out is punished. But Cassie didn't back down. Not when the room turned cold. Not when his lawyers pushed back. Not even when Diddy, the furious, unraveling, tried to shout her down. She sat there, pregnant, calm, composed. And she gave the courtroom something it hadn't seen in a long time, truth without fear. And when it was over, the question wasn't whether Diddy would win the case. It was whether his reputation could survive what the world just heard. If you made it this far, you already know this story goes way deeper than headlines. Hit that like button if this shook you like it shook us. Subscribe for more explosive updates as this trial unfolds. And tell us in the comments, is this the end of Diddy's empire? Or just the beginning of something even bigger?